Hi friends, welcome to the NPTEL course Strategy and Technology, a practical primer. We are in week 11 with the theme of technology and business. In this lecture, the 55th in the series, we discuss the topic of high technology businesses and companies. When we formalize innovation process, we help the firm become a pioneer, a leader in the industry. But that depends upon how well the locus of relationship between the customer and the firm is established. And innovation has to translate itself into experience at the hands of the customer. Different countries adopt different practices in terms of encouraging R&D. However, all investments made in R&D represent a key benchmark for measuring the level of innovation. Different approaches that are taken to channel the R&D investments will have different levels of success depending upon the different industries and the context of the firms. When we see the top ranking companies in the world in terms of innovation, in terms of market capitalization, we will see the differences as well as similarities among such firms. In the contemporary world, diffusion and networking of innovation across countries and companies is required, and that provides a collaborative and synergistic impact on the innovation satisfying the customers. Further case studies of companies will follow in subsequent lectures, and they will further demonstrate the technological intensity of firms, helping the firms achieve a superior position in their markets and in their industries. How do we revive or transform the innovation ecosystem? Entrepreneurial culture has strengthened in the past decade without doubt, but it has happened almost as a separate part of industrialization. A whole new series of unicorns have emerged, a whole new series of startup firms have emerged. But firms undertaking similar startup activities within themselves or undertaking similar entrepreneurial initiatives within their structures has not been very frequent. Similarly, the funding mechanisms are very liberal and very futuristic in terms of discrete startup companies, but are very limited in terms of the regular ongoing actual companies wanting to do new businesses in an entrepreneurial way. Again, most of these entrepreneurial companies have been in the business of digital recreation of businesses rather than in the business of providing technological solutions for critical planetary issues, be it the reduction of energy consumption, minimization of emissions, or provision of inclusive social services. So how do we tackle this? How do we modernize? How do we upgrade? And how do we contemporize our innovation ecosystem? Fundamentally, we should expand public investments in R&D and incentivize venture capital R&D in private sector. Secondly, we should expand the diffusion of existing technologies that support the creation of new firms and employment in markets of tomorrow. We should also incentivize and expand patent investments in research, innovation, and invention that create new markets of the distant future. And finally, we should encourage firms to embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion to enhance creativity. I mentioned earlier that innovation could start looking at the goal rather than at the current resources or looking at the current competencies. One of the ways to make this happen is to say that the goal of innovation is to ensure diversity, equity, and inclusion, and look at developing social enterprises or even for-profit enterprises, but that will solve social issues. The other three are in terms of greater allocations to R&D and also greater development of venture capital funding in the private sector, as also diffusion of the technological knowledge and incentivizing the patient, persistent, and diligent investments in R&D and innovation. So the idea is to create an overall innovation ecosystem in the country. World Economic Forum is a leading global organization which of course has been very much private sector oriented, but also it has got several governmental representatives frequently represented there. The World Economic Forum considers feedback from the participants as one of the indicators of the future evolution of the industry, and frequently, or rather annually, it publishes the Global Competitiveness Report. In 2020, it published the Global Competitiveness Report Special Edition, and it looked at the developed countries as well as developing countries which were participants of the WEF. Asked 3 questions of the participants about the key technology indicators, and it emerged that the developed countries by and large continue to dominate in terms of work and technology trends that are supported by digitization. India is not high in the digital skill ranking, which is extremely surprising given that the digital skills are actually emanating in India to a great extent, and India is the global IT services country. One of the reasons could be the linkage of the digital skills to the population size. That could have made India not appear in the top 10 countries. So the top 10 performers on key technology indicators are countries such as Netherlands, New Zealand, Switzerland, United States, Denmark, Finland, etc. And the same kind of companies figures in the digital skills as well as digital legal framework. I would say that India should have and would have figured very prominently in the top 10 had only the digital skill levels in absolute numbers been taken into account, or if India's digital skills were compared with the digital skills of the other companies and other countries. Regarding the approaches towards globalization, clearly there is a lot of scope for India to further globalize. We have seen in an earlier lecture how the cage network or the cage distance framework helps us to understand our globalization potential and also the globalization propensity. India can do a lot in terms of globalization. In future, India believes that it could be at the same level of globalization more or less, whereas some countries such as Republic of Korea believes that it would be even more globalized than it is today, and so does China in its belief. Therefore, there is a need to stimulate the private sector thinking towards globalization. Globalization must aim at least getting 50% of the turnover from the global markets, and that goes well with India's aspiration to become the world's 3rd largest economy by 2025. And to be able to do that, we require sound business strategy and innovative technology, which is why this course is being offered in such depth and in such expansiveness, so that the interrelationship between strategy and technology is well articulated and also well absorbed by the participants. India's intellectual property and patent challenge is also visible in terms of the pie here. Global patent activity remains concentrated in only 5 economies: United States, Japan, Korea Republic, Germany, China. The rest of the world, that includes India, contributes to 25%. What we need to do is to get to a stage where we are on par with China and Korea and Germany in terms of intellectual property generation and creation of patent estate. We should get at least 10% of global patent activity. That must be the goal. Again, not every strategist will be or will need to be a technologist, but every strategist must understand the importance of technology in powering India's private enterprise growth. Similarly, every technologist must understand that the intellectual property that he or she creates has the strategic impact in terms of making our Indian industry globalized and also making India a very powerful super economic power in the world. So the globalization of India in terms of GDP as well as competitiveness will be made possible through cohesive execution of strategic technology management. This lecture is about the most innovative companies. We call them high technology companies, or we call them most innovative companies. The list would be more or less the same. When you look at these top 50 innovative companies of 2021, we will find that companies with technology background dominate the listing. We have Apple, we have Alphabet, and the parent of Google, we have Amazon, we have Microsoft, we have Samsung, we have IBM, we have Huawei, Sony, LG, Facebook, Alibaba Group, Oracle, Dell, Cisco, HP, and so on. So the dominance is in terms of digital and electronics. That is where the world is going. The traditional economy facing industries such as Shell, such as GE, do not figure in this listing. Pharmaceutical companies which are having monopoly based on the innovation are also few compared to the previous years and decades. We have Pfizer, we have Johnson & Johnson, we have Moderna figuring in this, apart from Abbott and Bayer and AstraZeneca, as well as Roche. So it's quite a significant positioning in the top 50 companies, and pharmaceutical companies are innovation led. So having the top pharma companies figure in the top 50 most innovative companies is again an underlining of the importance of innovation in reaching the top ranking globally. We also have certain companies which are known for their telecommunication capability or connectivity capability, apart from the Microsofts and Apples of the world. Such companies, Cisco, such companies are also in fields such as sales data analytics and Salesforce management. Media doesn't figure very prominently, but Disney is the leader in media and Disney figures in this. Many medical imaging as well as electronics achievements are Philips, and Philips figures prominently in this. GE is in the 47th rank. Once upon a time, GE would have been number 1 in terms of the world's most innovative companies list. We have also seen how GE is structuring its R&D in a methodical yet innovative fashion has made GE the leader in intellectual property by the mid-1900s. But then that has slipped, and the new generation technology companies, computer companies, and pharmaceutical companies have taken over the listing. In the automobile field, we have Toyota, we have Tesla. Tesla is leading Toyota. Toyota is leading Hyundai. And one of the important supplier of automotive fuel injection pumps, Bosch, also figures prominently. Retail is not very much prominent. We have IKEA, we also have Target. Diversified companies such as Mitsubishi also figure a place here. The common man's retailing is contributed by Amazon, Walmart, Fast Retailing, and consumer goods companies are not many here, but companies which cater to the athletic needs, walking needs, figure prominently, Nike and Adidas. There is a lot of potential for companies to move up and down depending upon the strides they would take in terms of innovation. Facebook, for example, has announced its plan to take a big position in metaverse. But other companies are also not going to fall behind. They will have their own meta mobility or meta pharma, and they would also try to get into this new world of virtuality. These and a few other slides are courtesy Professor Sai, who is a professor in the Department of Management Studies at the Institute of Technology, Madras. So this slide talks about the new competitive space for innovation. We have two axes here. One is the locus of innovation and the other is the locus of competence. In the past, the intersection or the interaction of the locus of innovation and the locus of competence remained in terms of transactional activities, that is product innovation and supply chains, and the interacting spaces were the product space and the firm and its supply base. It was a firm-centric and a product-centric activity set that determined the interaction between innovation and competence interface. Later on, the solution space came in the place of product space. That is, product is just not a product, it provides a solution. That is the understanding. Similarly, the firm and its vendor base is replaced by the concept of an extended enterprise. When we look at this interface between the extended enterprise and the solution space, you will get a different locus getting traced. It will comprise supply networks, it will focus on systems integration, and it will focus on solutions innovation. So the game has got elevated to the level that is higher than the previous one of just product innovation and supply chains. But today, the locus of innovation is on experience space, and the locus of competence is based on the enhanced network of competence, including consumer communities. When this happens, you will have experience networks, you will have experience personalization, you will have experience integration, we have experience innovation. That is, networking, personalization, integration, and innovation will all be experienced. They will be immersive experiences that are felt and imbibed by the consumers. So the current emphasis is on a total networked ecosystem, of which the firm obviously is one important element. However, for the new age firm, the locus of competence is networking and the locus of innovation is customer experience. So when you have that, you need collaboration, and collaboration is something that is going to co-create value. We have discussed in our earlier lectures that competition and pure competition is no longer the base of competitive strategy. Collaboration is as important as competition, we observed. So here we have collaboration intensity and the prerequisites for collaboration, because collaboration cannot occur with all the parties and in all manners. There must be some level of prerequisite that determines the type of collaboration. So there are 4 stages of collaboration intensity. The first stage is market-based, transaction-driven, and the expectation is proportional to the envisaged benefit. And corresponding to that, the prerequisites for collaboration were nothing but arm's length transactional relationship between the firm and the suppliers. When these two combined, what you got was only a traditional firm-centric business approach, which again corresponded to the previous locus discussion of traditional product innovation and traditional supply chains. Then the collaboration intensity improved or enhanced. Pursuit of efficiency and effectiveness across the value chain was seen as the important driver of collaboration. That is, supply chains and the company should plan everything collaboratively, should develop products collaboratively, so that the end result will be more than 1 + 1, it is 3. And that required sharing of information between the two companies. When companies and the stakeholders shared information, that is transaction data, and pursued efficiency and effectiveness across value chain, we got this extended enterprise approach, which was progressive. It was not inward looking, it was outward looking. Then came the phase that we need to have joint development and we have to co-manage our network. We have to think that we are one ecosystem, not two different workspaces or ecosystems just helping each other. And that required both the stakeholders, the firm and its extended network, or all of these together in a shared inclusive manner must co-create knowledge for competitiveness. That led to shared practices and co-innovation. And today we are interested in a shared goal synergistic leverage of competencies. That is, a real estate developer cannot think that the developer is creating apartments or offices. The real estate developer must have a vision that integrates with the smart city concept, that is the future concept of all cities. And that smart city concept is shared by everybody who has a stake, be it individuals like us or the governments who specify the policy, the financial institutions who fund, or several players who provide all kinds of equipment and all kinds of inputs for the sector. So smart city is the goal, not just real estate development. The moment you think like this, the prerequisites for collaboration also enhance. We have to discover, create, and meet new opportunities by our proactive behavior. And when these two meet with each other, we have the shared destiny and co-creation of value. We move from co-innovation to co-creation of value, and there is a whole new opportunity space that will emerge. Industrial transformations that are occurring now require high collaboration intensity and high transparency. We are thinking of electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles as part of that. But if you want to reach the green curve, we have to be also integrating with concepts such as smart urban spaces, smart rural spaces, and so on. When we migrate to experience personalization, we will see that the factors of customer fulfillment, the transactional delivery are going to change. I have put here traditional standardization, mass customization, and experience personalization. The environment has changed from standardized demand fulfillment imposed on customers of the 1970s to 1990s to homogenized customization of the 2000s and 2010s, and now to personalized customer experience, which will start escalating in its impact from 2020s onwards. So the view of the customer in the first approach or the past approach was one of standardized needs. I talked about the ready-made apparel being in just 4-5 size designations. Then we could approach mass customization. That is, every ready-made store will also have a tailoring division to standardize it to the individual customer or optimize it to the individual customer. But I have spoken about a situation where we have a sensory system, digital system, to be able to create a database of several thousands of visitors so that the clothing can be developed in a much more customized manner. That is individualized experience. The focus of customization, one product for all, later on homogenized product, and now personalized interactions. Approach to customization itself has shifted from just having several menu factors to providing all the factors to providing features that provide experience. View of supply chain was competitive supply relationship. Now it is collaborative supply relationship, and in future it will be shared supply and usage transformations. The focus of infrastructure has moved already from scale intensive common facilities to configured fulfillment services for build to order process, and in future it will be flexible development, manufacturing, and customer experience systems. So we require as firms to change our views of customers of having predetermined needs to one of real-time dynamic needs. And some of these needs would have been discovered already by the customers but may not be provided for by the companies. That in any case has to be done. But time has come when new needs have to be discovered on behalf of the customers by the firms. The views of technologies also have to change from being an instrument to make products or deliver services to one of creating experiences. To be able to do that, we need R&D as the engine of growth for the nation as much as to the firm. As the graphic below shows, R&D as a percentage of GDP, researchers per million population, and absolute R&D spending. These three factors determine the strength of the national R&D. R&D as a percentage of GDP is on the horizontal axis. Researchers per million population is on the y-axis, and the size of the bubble or the circle shows the total R&D spending normalized to the US total R&D spending. This is the situation with reference to the world of R&D. You will find that in terms of R&D, still United States is in a big position. The developed countries such as Japan, South Korea are in a big position. China is trying to increase its absolute R&D expenditure, although in terms of R&D as a percentage of GDP or researchers per million population, it still trails countries such as USA, Japan and South Korea. South Korea has taken a big lead in terms of R&D percentage related to GDP as well as researchers per billion of population. That explains some of the innovative products coming out of South Korea consistently. India is recognized, but still we need to improve our dedication to R&D as percentage of GDP, as also number of researchers per million of population. We have the world's largest scientific and engineering manpower, no doubt, but in relation to the overall population we have of 1.35 billion, that researchers per million population is low. Countries with lower levels of population have higher levels of researcher per million population. That means that we still have further strides to make in terms of our STEM education and R&D scientists. Again, university research, university patenting are important indicators of the future evolution of technology and science in any country. US and China dominate the university patenting output. Within the top 50 universities known for the PCT patent filings, 20 were located in the US and 14 in China. Of the top 5 universities, 3 are in China and 2 in the US. Within the 470 published PCT applications, the University of California remained the biggest user of PCT system among educational institutions in 2019. IIT Madras alone has filed 184 patents in 2020 out of the 557 patent applications filed by all the 23 IITs together. Therefore, IIT Madras has turned out superior intellectual property creation pathway amongst the various IITs. And 9 of the patents were inventions related to COVID-19 and to find cures for the COVID-19, as also the protective measures, diagnostic measures for COVID-19. IIT Madras feat also compares with the 202 applications filed by CSIR, which is the apex laboratory comprising several dedicated research laboratories. IIT Madras 184 compares with the 202 applications. That means IIT Madras has done similarly a huge amount of research in India, comparable to the 50 odd research laboratories dedicated to various research streams. However, we need a quantum leap in patent filings by India's higher educational institutions that will drive India's national innovation. Let us look at the share of total global R&D spending. This table provides the percentage of the total R&D spending and the total GDP. We will find that the developed countries continue to have a high share of total global R&D spending. This is something which we need to be seeing as a marker of the transition of the economy from emerging to developed, and ensure that the share of R&D is enhanced. We have USA at 25% and China at 23.2%. Japan is at 7.8%. We need to move from our 4% to maybe about 10%. That could be a realistic target we could have. Similarly, the global sector spending also has a distinctive flavor. Japan has been a leader in terms of sectoral spending across all the sectors a few years ago or a couple of decades ago. But today the situation is not that. We have a situation where Japan still leads in automobile, chemicals and energy, computing and electronics, and general industrials. But logically, of course, it doesn't have any say in terms of aerospace and defense, given the nature of post-World War agreements. But it has in very minor say in software and internet. We must be having much greater say in software and internet. That's missing. Similarly, the fact that North America still has a big share of total sector spending in software and internet, and in healthcare, and in computing and electronics, as well as aerospace and defense, needs to be taken note of. So the directions in which R&D investment could take and what could lead to the strengthening of the industrial system in different countries is evident from this graphic. Same data in different way we present here. R&D spending by industry is of different levels in different areas, but you can see that software and internet has seen rather exponential growth in terms of R&D spending between 2010 and 2020. Healthcare also has seen significant increase over time. Computing and electronics has grown in the 2005 to 2015 period, but it has gone up and down. Auto continues to maintain a secular upward direction. Aerospace and defense have seen plateauing. Chemicals and energy obviously could do with more investments, particularly because we want pollution-free chemical development and clean energy coming up in a big way. So there are trends in the R&D spending by industry, some of which need to be strengthened and some of which need to be countered. The R&D spending by region in terms of absolute expenditure in billion US dollars shows how China is trying to reach to a top R&D spender status. It is by far in the current times the largest spender by absolute billion-dollar terms, followed by United States and followed by Japan. Japan still is the third largest R&D spender from an absolute sense. Which country has technology leadership? One of the ways in which we can assess this is by analysis of the technology innovation hubs. Outside what we know as the world's largest technology hub, that is the Silicon Valley, San Francisco, we have 10 other leading technology innovation hubs that have been identified. Of this, India figures in terms of our own Bengaluru, and that is a matter of pride. But we still need to add many more centers as technology innovation hubs. And we also should move up in the ranking. And countries that are promising in terms of the impactfulness and disruption capability of technologies, US still ranks number 1, followed by China number 2. And going by the startup acceleration that has happened, India is also figuring as number 2 in terms of the potential promise to develop disruptive technologies. So it's a good thing in parts. India has been ranked at second place, tie with China, in the countries which promise to develop most impactful disruptive technologies. Bengaluru has been placed 9th in the list of leading technology innovation hubs outside Silicon Valley, San Francisco over the next 4 years. Mumbai also has found a place in the top 20 innovation hubs, not shown here. It has been the 16th ranked. The increase in the ranking of Bangalore and Mumbai is due to the continuous rise of India in Global Innovation Index. So we can tie this back to the Global Innovation Index, which we have studied in an earlier lecture. Various parameters do indicate that India has established strong innovation hubs that are globally competitive. The challenge is to make this diffused all over the country and occupy various sectors where the position has been intrinsically weak. There is no reason why we should lack in software and internet, for example. We are the leading world's provider of software and internet services. Why can't we be the leader in software and internet products as well? Similarly, why can't we be the leader in semiconductors and similar other electronic items? So in terms of individual companies, we can see that Samsung, Alphabet, Microsoft, Huawei, Intel, Apple are the companies from the technology space or dominated by the technology space that have a leading position in terms of R&D spending in $1 billion. In the automobile space, we have only 2 companies, Volkswagen and Daimler, both European. And in terms of pharmaceuticals, we have Roche and Johnson & Johnson figuring prominently in the top 10. And when you look at the next tier, we'll find a few more pharmaceutical companies, Merck and Novartis, as well as Pfizer, a few more automobile companies, Toyota Motor, Ford, General Motors, BMW, and Supportive Auto, Bosch. Another technology company, Facebook, figures in the 11th to 20th ranking. And general engineering and energy communication giant Siemens is at the 20th rank. This set of curves traces companies which have been innovative all through certain period of time. That is from 2005 to 2020. If you trace the companies about their ranking pivots, you will find that certain companies consistently remained as top innovators. Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft, Samsung, Huawei, Alibaba Group, IBM, Sony, and Facebook. They have been there for top ranking in recent years. But some companies from China have taken big increase, Huawei to 42 and Alibaba Group to 16. Whereas certain companies defended their positions and came up, example, Apple. This again proves that technology is the new driver of innovation in the world, and companies that are dedicated to technology are not resting on their laurels. They are continuing to invest in a big way in R&D. Patent grant is another important aspect. Some of the big names in business that we know of: IBM, Samsung, Canon, Microsoft, Intel, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, LG, Apple, Huawei, and Qualcomm are the companies which are leaders in terms of patent grants in the United States. So grant of patents is also led by and large by technology companies. We don't find even a single pharmaceutical company in this. This of course is relatable to the diversity of electronics and technology product and component manufacture. One product may have different kinds of patentable activities as well as components. For example, for a foldable phone, apart from the phone itself, the folding mechanism may be patented, the foldable screen may be patented, the form factor could be patented, various other possible. But whereas in the case of drug, either the process or the product is patented, and huge amount of intellectual property may be going in while making the drug from the discovery to the final delivery stage, but the patent is given only for the final pharmaceutical product. Therefore, it is probably not a like for like comparison, and thinking that pharmaceutical industry doesn't figure in this is probably somewhat off mark. In terms of the PCT international patent applications in 2020, China is leading the pack with 68,000 plus, and USA 59,000. Japan here also keeps its lead. Republic of Korea is a fourth second. The distance between Republic of Korea and China is quite substantial. We need to adopt as India a quantum leap in patent filings, and this needs to be taken up as a national mission in India. The top PCT applicants 2020, again the list will look similar, but a few companies from other fields have entered, particularly from the technology group: Huawei, Samsung, Mitsubishi, LG Electronics, Qualcomm, Ericsson, BOE, Oppo, Sony, Panasonic. These are the companies which are the top PCT applicants in 2020. This generation of intellectual property is not just based on one company or one country. The company which is managing the intellectual property, which is owning the intellectual property, may be one. But today's development and manufacturing paradigm is network driven across multiple countries. So we have a knowledge dispersion profile for ST in hard disk drive electronics. ST is nothing but ST microelectronic. You will see here that the microprocessor development happens in the joint venture with Siemens, Germany. Process technology R&D, design competence is done in Italy. Another part of process technology is done in France. Engineering and design skills come from Bristol, UK. Engineering and design skills in digital servo controllers come from Dublin. There is a joint design center with CKT in Scotts Valley, CA. California, Colorado provide lead customers R&D and engineering. Competence in RW technology is provided by California. Engineering and design capability is provided by San Jose. Design of packaging, testing and final assembly backend capability is provided by Malaysia and Singapore. Customers manufacturing is in Singapore and also certain other Far East locations. So a semiconductor manufactured or a hard drive electronic product manufactured in Singapore or a Far Eastern country has got inputs from all across the world, which means that there must be knowledge dispersion across the world, and this in turn requires strong intellectual protection for firms across regions and countries. Therefore, when there is huge intellectual property, there is also an attempt to steal the intellectual property, and people try to forge. And there are 4 types of intellectual product forgery. One is reverse engineering, which is done while the patent is in enforcement. Reverse engineering is okay when the product has become legally permissible, patentable manufacturing category product. But when the product patent is there, when the process patent is there, reverse engineering is an illegal activity. The other activity is to imitate. The inspiration comes from the innovator, and that imitation is to be condemned because it bears the brand of the imitator. Then you have piracy, and you also have counterfeiting. You claim to be the product which everybody desires, but actually you are not the product. That is counterfeiting. Piracy is the worst form of that again. So if you have a horizontal dimension of don't change the product and change the product, and don't change the trademark and modify the trademark, you will get 4 types of intellectual product forgery. Reverse engineering works with changing the trademark but not changing the product. Imitation works with modifying the product and also modifying the trademark. Piracy works when neither the product nor the trademark is changed. You just aggrandize for yourself the product. Counterfeiting occurs when there is modification of the product and trademark remains the same. All are bad. Everything has got a serious impact on personal and business safety and health of the industries as well as the economies. National culture must emphasize the respecting of copyrights and trademarks as much as more evolved patents. It is a matter of great satisfaction that India recognizes product patents, process patents. Indian culture has increasingly moved towards weeding out piracy and counterfeiting and respecting original innovation and legally allowed, legally supported reverse engineering. And that is the path for a company to become more and more innovative. Along with the innovation comes also the responsibility of protecting the innovators as well as innovating firms. When you have different types of intellectual property infringement, we should have a technical and legal capability to identify the sources of infringement and take action to defend the legal rights of the innovators. As I said, each of these intellectual property dimensions, be it patent, trademark, copyright, industrial design, trade secret or genetic code, could be infringed in some manner or the other. But we should have our technological and legal capability to defend the patents and also proceed against the infringers and assert the right of innovators and investors. For that, the national patent system as also legal IPR systems need to be strengthened further. And there are several IPR protection approaches that could be taken by companies not only to encourage innovation but also protect the innovation and the innovators. So employees could be asked to be responsible in terms of development of innovation as well as protection of innovation, including keeping IP in secure locations, timely and prompt filing of international patent applications, and absorbing the state of the art in intellectual property. suppliers could be governed by non-disclosure agreements and strong contracts. Similar arrangements with distributors, users, joint venture partners, and legally work with all stakeholders to make sure that innovation is protected and infringers are punished. There is also this attempt by multinational companies to have partial official disassociation. Whenever multinational companies enter other countries, they tend to develop certain branding and certain product labeling that is separate from what they have in their own countries. Gleevec is an anti-cancer product. Imatinib as mesylate is the product. The same product is marketed by Novartis across the world. In certain geographies, including its own, that is the developed US and EU world, it markets it as Gleevec. But when it comes to certain emerging markets, it is marketed as Gleevec. There is only 2-letter to 1-letter change, and the phonetic similarity is there. However, the brand is different. GSK has got the blockbuster over-the-counter anti-acidity medication. It is marketed in the developed world as Zantac, but in the emerging world, it is marketed as Zintac. Again, small difference, phonetic similarity. So the MNCs themselves are differentiating their products in different jurisdictions. This is again a kind of intriguing stance taken by multinational companies, but with most countries becoming signatories to TRIPS agreements, and with most countries recognizing the need for respecting patents, trademarks, and copyrights, I do hope that such dual approaches would slowly become a thing of the past. So the takeaways from this lecture are that those countries which have become top developed countries have strong association in terms of higher order investments in R&D taken based on any parameter, R&D as percentage of GDP, researchers per million of population, or absolute level of R&D spending. There is a growing trend of technology companies across countries coming up in a big way in top rankings for R&D. The locus of interaction between stakeholders of different capabilities is moving from just a transactional relationship through the current collaboration framework to customer experience framework. The emphasis is on co-creation of value. Those countries and those companies which develop and protect intellectual property are going to be the top rankers in the industrial setting globally. Along with intellectual property generation, we also need intellectual property protection. So strategies and technologies also have to take significant interest in protection, techno-legal protection of intellectual property and identification of infringements. Then only innovation will be recognized, will be rewarded as well as protected. Thank you for the attention. We'll again meet in the next lecture.